Hello and welcome to the Yoga Pantry with Natasha. Today we're going to do a little tip on the Runners Lunge or the lizard pose. So same pose, depends on who's telling the story as to what it's called. And we're going to look at how to do it in order to get the most out of it, and also how to modify things and challenge yourself up a little more. So what is the lizard pose or the runner's lunge? It's just a much bigger lunge than normal. So if you need to, if you're not super flexible, I'd recommend having some blocks or something that you can use as a prop. I'm just going to put them to the side for now. And so getting into a normal lunge, either from down dog or just from your knees up position. So normal lunge, we're generally just going to look at stacking our bones and squaring our hips and staying up a little higher. A runner's lunge or lizard pose, we're going to move the foot, I'll do it on this side, we're actually going to move the foot out to the side so your body can come through in between. In a normal lunge, generally the body's in the way. Now you could get a little lower in a normal lunge by bringing your arms to the inside. And for some people, depending on how your hips are built, you might not actually be able to move that leg out to the side very much. Or you could move it all the way to the edge of your mat. Now notice as I'm moving this foot and leg, the knee and the foot want to be lined up with each other the whole time. I don't want my foot off in a weird angle while my knee is pointing that way and vice versa, pointing in, and I see that happening a lot in class. I also see sometimes the leg collapsing in and out. That means you've probably just taken your leg out a bit too far for your hip. So have a play around and find the comfortable openness. Come around to the front. So if I'm in my normal lunge, I've got my ankle, my knee, and my hip in more or less one line. Now, to bring my body in, I'm kind of going to have to move away a little bit. And now we're getting into that whole runner's lunge lizard pose. We're getting deeper into our hamstring stretch. So I could either just move my body off, but to keep my body more aligned with my spine, I'm going to move and walk my foot over to the side. For me, I'm quite open through my hip area, so it's comfortable for me to take my foot all the way to the edge of the mat. And I've got all of this openness to have my arms stacked underneath my shoulders, and I could hang here, or if I'm quite flexible, I could come down a little lower, but we're going to talk about that in a moment. Let me get back to this side. So when I come into my lunge and I walk that foot out, I have a few choices here as well. If I am not very flexible, I can bring in my blocks and make the pose much higher. This allows me then to sink a little more comfortably into my hips. Or if I am in between flexibilities and I want to come down lower, so if just being on my hands it's okay, but I want to come lower, but coming all the way down to my forearms is no good, I can again have blocks at either level and just bring my body down through here. This allows me to get a little deeper into this stretch. And of course, for those of you that are super flexible, you can come all the way down to your forearms. Now what we're looking for here is length through my spine. So noticing I'm not wearing a turtle shell here. If I'm rounding through the back, notice what happens with my hips. Then it kind of takes the stretch out of my legs. So if you come down and your back starts to round and your hips start to move back, then it's better to be up higher. And you can go even higher and you will still get all kinds of stretches here. In fact, for you, you might get a bigger stretch if you stay up high. So you can totally be in this wide stance and be up high. Now notice, another thing that I can do with my runner's lunge is, my lizard pose, is have my shin quite far forward, or my foot quite far forward of my knee. What I don't really want to do is have the knee jutting past the leg. That's going to stop you getting lower into it anyway, and also it's going to put too much pressure into the knee and into the ankle. So being able to either have more or less knee over heel or ankle, or even wider if you're super flexible and it'll take you down to the ground. Always watching that your knee and your foot are in alignment. Don't let that foot turn out. It's going to put all kinds of pressure into your knee. So another option in our lunge is we can choose to put strengthening into this pose. I'm just going to bring myself in a bit so I've got my strength. And I can take my back leg off the ground. So if I'm here in my lizard or my runner's lunge, then I'm working core strength and arm strength and leg strength and hip strength. You'll feel it the longer you stay here. And so this is drawing everything up, taking that knee off the ground, and as usual, looking for length through my body. So use those props. Props aren't there to say that you're a beginner. Props are there to actually help you get a lot deeper into your pose and make the most out of your practice. And I love doing a prop practice from time to time. So just like we did before, you can come down onto those blocks or down to the ground here and work a lot more core strength, arm strength, leg strength, hip flexor strength. I'm feeling it already. Oh. And in this position, we've got our normal lunge. Where are you going to feel it? Oh. You're going to feel it into your hip flexor areas. Now some people feel it a lot more in their, if you come back into it here, some people feel it a lot more in their hamstrings along here, and others might feel it a little more through the hips. It depends on where your tightness is. If you're not really feeling anything there, have a little check in with your foot position. Make sure the hips are nice and squared up. Maybe try and lift that knee and you might feel the tightness there. So just play around and find your comfort level. And then you can start to challenge yourself once you move through your comfort level. So other things we can do in our runner's lunge. In this position, my leg is over on that side of the mat, and I could choose to put my other arm over on the other side of the mat, creating openness in my body. However, if you do that and your leg comes with you, then you just want to get a little bit closer. Just bring that arm underneath your body. But it's nice to be able to bring one hand to the knee, draw the shoulders back, and expand through the heart. Now you might feel more of that stretch coming down this lengthened side of the body. It's a nice heart opener. Make sure when we go into a little back bend that you're always pulling in through the belly slightly. And this is a lovely place to be. You can also do it with that leg lifted. Just make sure that you are inviting your core muscles to work and engage with you here. So another thing I can do in this position is open it into a full twist. In that case, you want to make sure that you've lined up your shoulder into your arm, and you can welcome yourself up to the sky. Shoulders down, plugged into your body, lengthening out. Knee can be down, you can open out, you can even tuck your hand behind you. Most people just like to hang out here. And something that if you find that these sort of asymmetrical positions for the legs create a little discomfort in your sacral area, that might mean that you've got a little looseness there. And something that might help make that feel more comfortable is walking away from the knee about 45 degrees or so and hanging out in this position. Now notice your back foot can be tucked or flat. Both options will give you slightly different activation in your legs. Now having the foot tucked is going to help support your knee a little more. So in any pose that requires a lunge on the ground, you can play with having the foot tucked or flat. Now my foot has a horrible habit of swinging over to the inside, so it's really important to focus on what's going on there and pull everything into line. And you can come down onto your blocks or onto the ground and notice this doesn't happen, but be very mindful. See, for me, it's really uncomfortable to come super open. So I might call in my blocks instead here, and that way I can get that length through my spine and bring my focus into my hip area, which is what we're trying to work with these big lunges. Oh. When you're in these lunges for a long time, come out slowly and have a little wobble, and you'll feel all of that circulation come back in. And there's one more, a really fun thing that I like to give to my class, especially if people are really loving the Runners Lunge, they're feeling strong, or if it's a strengthening class, is our little flying lizard. Because it is called a lizard pose too. So flying lizard, I'll show you from both legs. Get into your lunge, and we need to have our strength with us for our flying lizard. So we're going to lift that back leg, and then you can get down. If you've got the flexibility, you can get down, sweep your arm through, and now you've got to pull all of that energy up through your core and extend out through your other arm. Now that's going to work a lot of strength in the legs, the hips, and the core. So I'll show you from the other side. Stepping into my big old lunge. Take time to get yourself lined up and supported, so then you can make the most of your practice. Once you're here, now you can play just by lifting your inner arm, because we've got these 3 points of support. So if you're not quite ready for your flying lizard, you can play with these positions, and then when you get stronger and more flexible, you can take your arm through, and you got to pull up through the body. You can extend out from there. Release and have a little wobble. It's always nice to come into that half split pose as well, just to stretch things out the other way. Have a little wobble, and then you can release into your child's pose when you're done. So those are lovely ways to look at, play with, and activate your lizard pose. Now remember what your target is. Do you want to build strength into your hips? Do you want to bring flexibility? Hopefully both. We want strong hips that are flexible, because tight hips are weak hips. So we want to not be over hypermobile. We want to bring strength into our muscles. So strength and flexibility. And Runner's Lunge is a really good one for that, especially when you start adding in the lifting of the knee, maybe your flying lizard pose, and also the rising up. Which leg shall I do? On the other side. So also, when we come up, you can use your Runner's Lunge in a higher position, like a low lunge position. You can have your hands on your knee, your hips, or because Runner's Lunge tends to have the hands between the legs on the ground, it's nice to just have some big blocks, and then either toes tucked, lifts the body slightly, as you can see, or if I flatten that out, I might sink a little deeper into this pose. And if you've got tight hamstrings, you might be feeling it there, or you might be feeling it in your hip flexors, or both, and belly drawing in. Super important that we activate the core muscles and protect our lower back, lifting the energy up through the body, up through the crown, shoulders down. And you can check how far you want that leg to come out. And it just reminded me of one more thing you can do in your lizard, depending on your flexibility. So, in lizard, some people are quite open and flexible in the hips, and it feels nice for them to do. So if it feels nice for you, me just move over so my foot stays on the mat. You can roll to the outer edge of your foot, which allows more openness into the body. But make sure your knee is happy about this because this is pretty intense. Now I broke this ankle a couple of years ago, so it's not as flexible and it's not so happy about that position now. If you're rolling or not, when you roll, the foot still wants to be more or less in line, but it's not going to be, your toes aren't going to point straight off from the knee because we're now putting the effort into the side of the leg. So I'll show you from the front. If I come into my runner's lunge here, my lizard pose, this foot is so much more flexible. This, for those that are flexible, gets a nice stretch here through the inner thigh area. And it just depends on how you feel. Now, make sure that you're going to hold your weight with the front of your body so you're not dumping it into that ankle. So that's super important. This is not about putting all that weight into the ankle. You will get a little ankle stretch. This is all about control with how we open into the body. And this is a nice prep to help you build a little more flexibility if you're trying to get into a lotus position. But be very careful and mindful with how you move your body. And hopefully that gives you some ideas of what is activating, what is working, where you can work into the stretch or how you can work with strength into your pose. And just also have fun with it. It's such a lovely, great pose to do, and I know my students love it. Especially when they just get to come down and rest. And it's also a pose that you will find in yin, where we soften. So all of those ones were activating poses. Now if you were to come into this pose in yin, then chances are you might want your blocks so that you can be a little higher. And as you get into your big old lizard pose, you can allow your body to soften. So here, instead of drawing in through the belly and finding that strength and connecting to our glutes, we want to let the body soften, allow your leg to open out, and it might open a whole lot or a little bit. And then just softening down to the ground. Some people even soften all the way down through the side of the body, and that leg might come in towards them a little bit. Yin's very different because we're surrendering our effort and letting go of the muscular contraction and the muscular effort. It allows us to stretch the connective tissue, the fascia predominantly. And so it is a very different action, and you'll stay there and softly surrender into it for 3 to 5 minutes. If you're doing some kind of stronger practice, then we pull the energy in and we make sure that we're engaging ourselves through our core. So when we're here, this is a good reminder, when we're here as well, looking for that length through the body. We are, in a way, relaxing through the leg, but we're maintaining this commitment to the integrity of our core and our body. Have a play around with it. If it doesn't feel right for you, then it's not right at this time. Your body may change, and in time it might feel right in a different way, so don't get stuck into, well, this is what's right for me. This is what's right for me today. Tomorrow it might be something different. So always be curious in your asana. Explore, play, check with the rules of alignment in terms of stacking your bones, in terms of where your knee goes, your foot follows. And that way you'll keep your joints healthy and safe, and you will not get injured in your yoga practice. Have a fab day. And if you have any other questions, if I didn't cover something that you were curious about in that pose, let me know. Or if there's another pose you'd like a breakdown of, let me know too. I love making these videos for you. So enjoy, and I will see you soon.